All right, abundance deep dive, day number 11, and I'm just gonna warn you, I'm parked in my favorite spot. There's a valley, and I'll take a picture. There's a lot of smoke and haze from the forest fires around me, but it's one of my favorite places to sit and think and journal. The only downside is that when there's traffic behind me, so you'll hear it, and I apologize for that in advance, but it's worth it for me because I love this spot. Day 11, it was all about like action steps and practical things that you can do that are not so out there and so difficult. I found this to be like, that's an actual really easy action step. Like people could do this. So one of the things that Steve warned us is in any development arena. So if you're doing personal development or you're doing something like this where it's like a 30-day challenge, by day 6 to 15 is when people want to quit. And so we're right in there where people are thinking it's too much, it's too hard, it's too much of a commitment. There's lots of energy. The vibrations are all over the place. Like it is a lot to take in. I personally don't feel like that. I love challenges like this. Like throw me in the deep end, sink or swim, like fucking figure it out. And I love getting blasted with a fire hose because it's instant change for me. There's usually something that triggers and I just take off from here. That's part of why I signed up for this challenge. I hope that there are people out there that you're kinder with yourself. If you are someone that is a little bit more sensitive, then just go slower. Just take it, step by step. There's nothing wrong with that. If you can't go full steam ahead, then just take your time. It's not a big deal. There was somebody that had mentioned in the chat, and Steve mentioned this, and I thought it was interesting because I resonated as soon as I heard it. And he said, lack of cash murdered my creativity. And Steve completely jumped all over that, and he's like, no, that's backwards. And I'm thinking, that totally makes sense to me. Like when I don't have cash flow, everything comes to a screeching halt. Like it's ridiculous. And Steve said, reframe that a little bit. Like, what happens if you switched it to lack of creativity murdered my cash? I'm like, what? What did you say? And part of that is if you can't control your cash flow, but you can control your creativity and your output. So instead of focusing on money, focus on your output. You have absolute control over what you do, how you spend your time, and figure out where to take that energy from that's being sucked out of your life and redirect it to being more creative. And when you're in that space of flow creativity, money often shows up. That's the byproduct. So I thought it was interesting that just a simple switch of, the creativity and the cash in that lack of creativity murdered my cash. I'm like, that's very true. And it doesn't have to. So that's a choice. Steve likes to reference Star Wars and all of that sometimes, and I'm trying to remember where this came from, and someone's going to correct me, so I'm just going to put it out there. I think it was The Princess Bride. Didn't really like the movie, but this line comes up all the time, where if we pretended every time we say something, a thought, a feeling, whatever that happens to be, but often when we think out loud, and Steve is talking about going through like your social media for the last few days or few weeks and reading back some of the stuff you've said, especially when it's written, if you add from the universe's perspective of as you wish, that's what you're telling the universe. So you say whatever it is, like, oh, I don't have any cash, I'm so broke and I can't pay my bills. And then you follow it up with, as you wish. And it was like, oh my God, I say stuff like that all the time when I'm in scarcity. I'm so focused on the problem. And even when I'm trying to get out of it, it just feels like I'm spinning. And then if you add, as you wish, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what's getting me stuck. So switching that around. And it's a really easy trick that he was talking about, which is add the and. And I'm like, what? So if you say, I don't have money to pay my bills, and it's a good thing I'm abundant. And then the universe says, as you wish. I'm like, oh, are you fucking kidding me? That's as easy as it is? Yeah. So try it. Think about all of the shit that you've said. You have your problem, like, I'm so fat, and I'm so grateful that I have abundant resources around me. as you wish. Or I'm so fat and I'm grateful that I have friends and family to help me release the weight, as you wish. Whatever it is that you're just hoping to get unstuck, right? It's a shift out of it. And, think about from the subjective point of view that if you want to have this magical program work for you, or you want to have, the courage to say no to whatever it happens to be, then program that into it. So I'm this is my problem, this is what's happening, and this could be maybe a potential solution. And then think about that. If the universe is like, as you wish, and you're like, you know what, I could live with that. It might not be the answer, but it's a way to get out of my shit problem, right? So when I'm stuck in my not being able to pay the bills, I am thinking to myself, I need to pay bills by Friday, which was yesterday. But here I am, like, Sunday, freaking out. So I'm like, great, I need money to pay my bills on Friday, and I have stained glass supplies to sell. And the universe says, as you wish. I'm like, sweet. By Wednesday, we had worked out a deal. By Thursday, the money's in my bank account, and effortlessly, things were paid. It can be as simple as that. It was as simple as that. It doesn't have to be this crazy complicated plan. So try adding the and play around with that, and just think to yourself, every single time you say something, if you add as I wish, as you wish, as you your wish is my command type of version of that from the universe. If it feels good, great. If it doesn't feel good, then change it. And something else Steve said, where did I write this down? He's like, clear and cancel, or cancel and clear. If you say something and you're like, oh shit, I didn't mean to say that, just cancel it. Cancel that. I changed my mind. Stop. And then say it again. What is it that you're after? For the people that are denying their truth, this was the second point that he was talking about. And I've got a few people that I know that get caught in this trap of, they do not want to admit the situation that they're in, because as soon as they admit it, the shit's gonna hit the fan and the to-do list starts piling. And I totally get that. So for one example, I have somebody in my life that is realizing that her job is ending and the money is gonna stop flowing like pretty quick here. But instead of telling people that she doesn't have a job, or admitting even out loud to herself that the money is gonna stop, she's just totally in denial mode. And the problem with that is, then she's running the risk of losing everything because she's not doing anything. There's no action because she's too afraid to admit that this is the circumstance. So instead of fighting the situation, instead of having resistance to all of this, separating the truth from the power part of it. So instead of, when you've got like that heavy sinking feeling of, if I say this out loud, I know that the shit's gonna hit the fan. So how about I separate them? I'm gonna stop the resistance, and it's really simple. So I acknowledge the truth. I acknowledge that the money's gonna stop, and I don't have the strength yet to take action. I don't have the resources yet to take action. I don't have the confidence yet, whatever that happens to be, right? To take action, to complete the rest of this. So universe, could you please help me with the resources? Could you help me with the strength? Could you help me with the confidence? Whatever that happens to be. And make it so that you're owning the situation. You're admitting that you're not where you want to be. Whatever that deep, it's almost like a secret, whatever that deep dark thing is, admit it. I acknowledge that this thing exists and I'm not ready to take on the next step. Can you please help me? Boom. The universe says, as you wish. And then shit starts to get real. Shit starts to happen. And it doesn't have to be this huge, complicated weight on your shoulders. I have another friend of mine who is not happy in her relationship and acknowledges that she is not happy in her relationship. And I'm looking at her like, why are you still staying in this relationship? And part of it is she doesn't want the repercussions of starting over, or just separating everything. I mean, from finances to where would she live and all of that stuff, right? How would that even work? I'm like, I get that, because it's heavy. In her circumstance specifically, it's very heavy. So how might your life go if you said, universe, I'm finally willing to admit I am not happy in my relationship. I acknowledge that it is likely best if it ends. However, I'm not ready to deal with the consequences yet. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. I don't have the resources, whatever that happens to be. Can you help me? I need this. The universe says, as you wish, right? How complicated could that be? And it doesn't have to happen right away. Just admitting that you're not happy, that you should probably move on from that. Then the universe starts to shift because you're starting to dig yourself out of it, right? Saying, you know what? No, I'm not going to, I'm happy. It's all fine in my world. You're going to stay there forever, miserable and stuck. And that's not fun either. So if it was me, and I don't necessarily have this problem because I'm able to jump right into the solution part and just get busy, making shit happen. But for some people, that's huge. And I can see it showing up in my life with relationships that I have that are actual, like right now, these two problems are happening. And I'm like, wow, how much more power and strength and courage might they have if they just said out loud to the universe, this isn't working for me, and I admit that it's not working for me. Can you help me, please? The last option that Steve was talking about that resonated with me is very similar to the example that I gave in the adjacent video to this, which is I'm encountering resistance, and instead of kind of dancing back and forth, and this happens to me a lot, where I'm like, I can see it from one perspective and I can see it from the other, and then I just waver between the two. Like, if I just kind of, one will eventually tip the scale, and then I'll go with that, and that's where I hope that that's the answer every single time, but that's never the answer. And what happens, and how he's explaining it, is just this: go to the extreme. If you are finding that you're kind of wavering on one side to the other and you keep flip-flopping back and forth, push to one side, to the absolute extreme, and commit to that side. So for me, in my example, which was the forum that's going to come up, and we're hoping to have like some kind of community and build on that, and I have sudden resistance and I don't want to be a part of it, then don't be a part of it, right? That's a valid choice. I can live in that opportunity of, you know what, fuck it. I am just going to do things all on my own. I'm going to seclude myself. I do not want to have anything to do with these people. There's no benefit whatsoever. And live there. Commit to it. Own it, right? 100%. And already I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want the possibility, right? So all of a sudden I start to shift to the complete opposite end. So then go live there for a little bit, right? And sometimes it's within minutes of each other. You can just say, you know what? Okay, well, let's go to the absolute opposite extreme and think that maybe that is the solution. Maybe, that could solve all of my problems. I could have a bunch of new friends, and we're all like-minded, and we're all on the same path. And, many of us have journeys that are aligned, and these could be lifelong friendships, potentially even business building relationships. Like, this could be awesome. And then I'm like, that feels really good. That could, that's cool. And then I'm like, somewhere along there becomes a happy medium. And I already feel better about defining the absolute extremes. And as much as I don't think that everybody in the group is going to be helpful and supportive and optimistic and, loving and caring, I would rather stay on the subjective end of it and say, okay, I can't control them. I can't control anything that happens from anyone else, but I can control myself. So what is it that I want to do? How do I want to give? How do I want to show up? And if I could have it any way I want, because I have the choice, if I'm tapping into the simulator and I can kind of rewrite the program, I can do that, right? I can plan out my own character and what is that going to look like? What kind of experience do I want to have? And I'm going to play in that area for a little while. See how that works, see how that fits. And it feels a lot better. There's zero resistance to it, and it becomes like a creative opportunity for me. So the last thing that Steve was talking about was splitting the vibes. And I found this worked really well in the beginning when I was doing this abundance challenge, which was, I feel the scarcity. And I think it was in my very first day, the epic long blog post and the super long video. I realized that there are areas in my life that are absolutely like ridiculous when it comes to scarcity, that it is over the top and I am like beyond clawing my way out. It's bad, right? It can be bad. And then there's areas of my life that are crazy abundant, like creativity. You know, and people are like, well, why don't you just sell your creativity? I'm like, I do, but there's still a block, right? There's still something, you know, they're not both, you know, magically aligned, but they're on two extremes. And that's exactly what he was talking about, is split them up. If you are able to compact and kind of put your scarcity like in a box, you know, and keep it like small, and don't let it expand, acknowledge that it's there. You're admitting that it exists, right? And if you need to set time in your schedule to worry about things, if you need to, you know, fret and spit in your shit, great. Then from this time to this time, 15 minutes a day, I'm going to worry my ass off and it's going to fit into this container, and then that's it. I'm going to get on with my day. I'm going to focus on what I am abundant in and let that go. And anytime a thought or anything like that creeps up, it's like, no, your time to worry is between these hours or this, you know, time frame every single morning, and that's it. That's all you get. I'm going to dedicate all the rest of my energy to being abundant. And being able to steal time and steal energy to focus on what's going to get you out of the scarcity. You know, talking to the universe about potential solutions and asking for help and reframing things, and then focusing on things that make you feel good. It's the shift out of being stuck. It's not that you're looking for this magical solution to fall into your lap. As soon as you start to get into the mode of, how could I do this? Like, what kinds of things do I like doing? You know, how could I make more money? And what would be fun to make more money so that paying my bills isn't, you know, a problem for me? It's getting to that where you can problem solve your own stuff. And when you're stuck in scarcity, you can't see anything. You are like up to your neck in fucking cement. Nothing is an option, right? We're so blinded by that. In a problem that doesn't even exist, you're not actually in cement. So shifting just a little bit. Putting your stuff in a container, all the shit, and for me it's like worry and anxiety and how am I going to do this? And it just spins all day, right? I'm like, stop. I'm going to worry for this much time during the day, and that's it. And then I'm done. Stop. And I'm going to move on and work on things that make me feel good. So maybe one of those things are going to help you out. There's lots of different tactics. I'm going to review this video, make sure that the audio isn't so terrible. It can't be worse than the first one. And I'm still learning as I go. Part of it is I have a roommate that loves to just bust into my room. It just so happens to be my 80-year-old grandmother. And at first I'm like, oh, really? You know, I'm 35 living with my grandma. Again, this is the third time I've lived with her. And part of me is like, you know what? I might not get an opportunity to live with her again. She might be gone. And then what? And here I am like bitching and squawking. So as much as it's not an ideal situation and it's not where I saw myself at this point in my life, there's so many people that are like, I would give anything to live with my grandma, just, you know, even for a little bit. And I thought, you know what? That's what I was thinking too. And I'm going to do it for as long as I can. I haven't murdered her so far, so we're good. And it gives her hope and gives her companionship, which she really likes. So, but it doesn't help serve and support me when I want to talk about serious things that are way over her head and she doesn't get. And yeah, she's a doll, but this isn't her thing. So I can't wait for tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. I feel like sometimes when I have these videos and I chat and do my journal, that the next day we talk about whatever it is that was in the video. And Steve puts like, you know, a bracket around it so that it kind of makes sense, or there's like a title to it or some kind of theme to it. And it's like, oh, I was just talking about that. Isn't that crazy? So it'll be interesting where he takes this tomorrow. I'm not sure. But for right now, I'm in a space where I really, really need to write down some of the things that I want. And from a space of, yes, I say I want, and that creates a feeling of desire, and sometimes we don't get, you know, things that we desire, and that's kind of bullshit. I'm going to take it from the perspective of, these are some of the experiences I'd like to have in my life in the next little bit. I might change my mind down the road, but for right now, I'd like to experience, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G kind of thing, and then write it from the perspective of the subjective reality of, great, if my character is at a tipping point, what would it take, and what would be a really cool, mind-blowing, like crazy experience that could possibly have all of these things happen, and what would just be like crazy fun, you know, movie type plot, like a funky plot twist that would just be crazy fun and just like, holy fuck, like, good for her, and where everybody's like cheering on that person, right? That's what I want, and that's what I'm gonna think about and daydream a little bit here. And it's okay to be in like a little bit of an unrealistic fantasy world. I think that's the point, is to push it to that extreme, right? I'm gonna go talk to you guys tomorrow.